Well, good day. I'm Todd Lindbergh, Senior Fellow at the Hudson Institute, and our topic today is the future of Belarus, fraud or freedom. Alexander Lukashenko has ruled Belarus for 26 years. He's been elected in elections that have been unfree and unfair, most recently with a claim of 80% of the vote in an August election on August 9th. The unfairness and the fraud were apparent immediately to the opposition and to international observers who decried the result as absurd. Protesters quickly took to the streets, demonstrators in the tens of thousands and even the hundreds of thousands in the weeks since. This is the boldest and biggest challenge to the reign of Europe's last dictator in the history of Belarus as a state independent from the Soviet Union. I'm joined today by two excellent commentators who will help us understand what's going on and what the future holds. Franek Wieczorka is a Minsk-based journalist and a non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council. He joins us from hiding, an undisclosed location. He's very much at risk because of his activities on behalf of democracy and freedom in Belarus. Also, Natalia Kalyada, an old friend of mine, co-founder of the Belarus Theatre, an opposition theatrical troupe that was designed to promote free expression and democracy. Natalia is exiled in London, and she joins us from there. Franek, let me start with you, since you are on the scene. What is different this time about the protests?
It's not just about the protests right now. It's about the awakening of the nation, I would say. First time I ever remembered, Belarusians are joining the protest despite their age, social status. They are risking their lives and health in order to bring Belarus to better reality and to the change. We have seen very robust electoral campaign. More than 50 people tried to run, but only a few of them were registered. The major leading candidates were not allowed to run, and all the opposition forces unified around the woman, Svetlana Tiganovskaya. Svetlana Tiganovskaya became the symbol of the protest. She managed to inspire all those never involved in politics before. Now, after election, she was forced to leave the country, and she continues her fight from abroad, from Vilnius. But the movement she just started, the protest, which is happening not just in Minsk but around the country, is still ongoing. And it's very, very symbolic, and it's spectacular that the protest movement is not traditional, I would say. It's very decentralized. It's very grassroots. So people, they don't need leaders actually anymore. Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, who is more like the spiritual leader for most of these people, but real leaders are people in the field, workers, students, creators, even artists, actors. They organize in all these performances and rallies in support of change. And we can see enormous crowds every Sunday in Minsk. Last crowd was on August 23, I guess. More than 200,000 people were on the streets. Belarus has never seen such crowds since 1991, when people protested for independence. And I think this is the best comparison for this protest, not to Ukrainian Maidan, not to Armenian Revolution, but to the protest for independence and the protest against the Communist Party in the early 90s.
Thanks. Natalia, let me turn over to you. I guess it's got to maybe hurt a little bit not to be on the scene for this one. Could you tell us a little bit about the role that the Belarus Free Theatre has played in working for democracy?
Yeah, it's difficult emotionally, but for that particular job that I'm currently doing together with my husband, it's better to stay out of the country, as it was the same in 2011, as you will remember, Todd, when we worked on major political targeted sanctions and Belarus Democracy Act and Putin economic sanctions in place in order to release all political prisoners out of jails that particular moment. So here I'm wearing not theater hat, even though I enjoy doing performances and just going on stage and receive amazing ovations. But this particular time, as we all know, that politics likes silence, and this is exactly what we need to do currently to organize negotiations and mediations and deal with all major players who are able to help us to organize peaceful transition of power. In terms of our brilliant company that is still on the ground for all years of its existence, 15 years, what an anniversary for us. We never thought that it will be such an anniversary. It was very hard hitting for our company because 4 members of our company got arrested, and 3 of them young women, and 2 of them are managing directors of all activities on the ground in Belarus. And they've been in jail, went through horrific experience. In my personal experience, it was those days in 2010 when you are only threatened to be raped, and you are kept in a specific cell where 15 people instead of 8. And this particular time, those young women been kept in a cell that is 3 on 4 meters, tiny cell with 36 other women. And that particular moment, for days and days, no food, no water, no toilet. And the moment they've been asking for water, the cell will be open, and guards of the jail will throw buckets of freezing cold water. At the morning, they will be taken to the yards, and there will be a lot of blood from other people, and they don't know what happened to those people. And knowing that people been killed, of course, your imagination draws horrific stuff. And knowing that people been raped by foreign objects, this is exactly what been happening with many people together with our members of the company. And same time, our company at the beginning of August hit the road, and they went to the most rural areas on a raft by rivers in order to inform population of Belarus where we don't have internet, where we have only official TV or radio. And they started to perform a show that is called Za, like, you know, that Russian one. And it is a folk tale about very horrific Tsar and about great, beautiful people who stood up against him. And it's folk tale written centuries ago, and it's so relevant. They arrive and perform, and after that they make food together, and after that our actors share what is happening in the reality, because those people are not informed. And that beautiful moment is happening there. But of course, like for me, it's 24/7 job in order to organize all necessary sanctions to be put in place. We worked on possibility of sanctions 2 months in advance elections, and working very hard, explaining that at that particular moment, 1,000 people already got arrested and candidates got in jail, and that we need to expect very bloody crackdown based on all those elements. And unfortunately, we've heard replies that it's summer holidays, and we don't expect that there will be that development. And unfortunately, as you know, it happens for many years with Belarus. So currently we need to organize that peaceful transition, and we need to organize free and fair elections without participation of Lukashenko. Otherwise, we know what will be the result.
Yes, and thanks for that beautiful story about the rural presentation of the Tsar story. Franek, how many people have been arrested?
So far, we know about more than 6,000 people arrested only during the last 2 weeks. At least 6,000 officially, according to Ministry of Interior. But
Well,
altogether, during the whole electoral campaign, it was more than 10,000 people. More than 600 filed complaints on violence, police violence, and tortures in prison and in police vans. We know officially 6 deaths confirmed. Those who were beaten and tortured by police, riot police. We know many people wounded and injured, including journalists. Friend of mine, Natalia Lubnyovskaya, just after surgery, she was shot by KGB Special Group Alpha, and she was shot targetedly. She was in the journalist press vest and with other journalists as well, and then the soldier shot her on purpose. So we observed absolutely unprecedented violence, not just for Belarus history, but for the whole region. And I don't even know if such situation and such extreme brutality was exercised anywhere else in Europe, in the last years. So I definitely see the signs that the regime is really frightened, and they are frightened of any type, any form of protest and activity. Today we knew that the almost whole troop of Belarus National Kupala Theatre was fired, and this is another example, of vengeance, I would say, towards those who do not agree. And even if Lukashenko survives, he will be living in the country where everyone will hate him. So I don't. I feel even sorry for him. He doesn't understand, how a big trouble he created for himself.
I assume the firing at the National Theatre was reprisal for the head of the theater going over to join the opposition. Is that right?
Also, but not only because of that. Of course, Pavel Latushka joined the National Coordination Council, the one who must conduct roundtables and negotiations with the government about the power transition, transit to Svetlana Tiganovskaya. But it's not about him. All artists supported the protest. Many of them were at the clashes the first days after elections. Many of them risked with their lives. They made performances. They put Belarusian historic white, red, white flags over the building just in front of the former Lukashenko's residency. They are super brave people, and I am impressed by Belarusians who managed to be so brave and fearless in such tough situations, tough moments. I really agree with Svetlana Alexeyevich, Nobel laureate, who just said that we are witnessing the awakening. We are witnessing how the nation is being born. And this is exactly the fact. Belarusian identity is getting shaped right now before our eyes on the streets of Minsk and other cities.
I want to back up just a little bit to the period before the election. And of course, Svetlana Tiganovskaya, the opposition candidate, stepped into that role after her husband was arrested. Could you tell a little bit about that part of the story, just to catch people up? And do we know anything about his condition at the moment?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I saw Sergei Tikhanovsky a day before he was arrested, detained. I really connect. I really understand him because I was trying to be the blogger, similar to him. The only difference between me and Sergei Tikhanovsky that my family was involved and was always pro-democratic. And Sergei Tikhanovsky, he had to pass this transformation from being very neutral, very passive, very apolitical, into the super engaged political person. And it happened thanks to YouTube technology. So for last for recent 2 years, he was traveling and recording ordinary people living in villages and towns of Belarus. And Sergei Tikhanovsky became the popular blogger telling the stories of ordinary people. And when he was detained, absolutely unexpectedly, in Grodno, the next day on Telegram channel, Telegram is the messaging app, which is very popular among Belarusian protesters. On this Telegram channel, someone said, Svetlana, Sergei is in prison, but someone must fight. You have to go and register on his behalf. And what you think? Svetlana went to the Central Election Committee in 2 hours, and she registered her own candidacy when on behalf of Sergei. She was registered. Many people helped her to collect signatures, and you know, she was just she was a housewife, 37 years old, English language teacher. But after 2 months, she became the national leader by accident, and she agrees that happened by accident. But I think all accidents are not accidental, you know, and this absolutely, this collusion of different absolutely unexpected situation, you know, made this movement so organic. So I wouldn't expect, you know, such protests and such revolutionary activities on Belarus streets if Svetlana wouldn't take that decision. So she was quick, she was brave enough to run and to put everything on the to play all the cards, or how to say it in English, to play out, yeah.
Yeah.
And
with a hand. Yeah.
yeah, and then Lukashenko made fatal mistake. He withdrawn all the male candidates, and he left Svetlana because he believes that women cannot challenge him, that women cannot do politics. He really underestimated the power of women, especially in Belarus. And Svetlana, she gave the hope not just to traditional political activists, but also to all these women living in Belarusian province whose voice was never heard before. And like in other performance by Belarus Theatre, Time of Women, you know, this is, I think, the apotheosis, you know, this is the culmination of this performance. So it's like a series, the season 2 of the Time of Women we are seeing right now in Belarus. And women are not just on leading role like Svetlana, but women are also journalists, women are also on barricades, women are also moving many of these Telegram channels that are coordinating protest activities. So it's everywhere, and that's spectacular, and I think that's example for the whole world.
Thanks. Natalia, let me come back to you and ask, so what is a day in your life like these days as you work on this problem from kind of far away?
Yeah, I'm in between different capitals, flying and non-stop. It is, as Franek says, like a location undisclosed, and the phone is put in a specific bag, and that nobody could possibly locate where I am, because the situation that we are dealing with is a very complex one. It's not the situation that we had before. But what helps us, it's exactly that knowledge that we accumulated over the last 26 years. And of course, like all the previous job with the American government in my previous life started from moving nuclear weapons out of Belarus. And it is amazing partnership that is located all over the world since those days. And it is now we decided that our deadline to go to bed will be 3:30 in the morning. And we must start to take first interviews already at 6:30 in the morning. How far we could go on that specific schedule, I don't know. But this is exactly how we must work now, trying to resolve the situation, because we currently see, of course, and you observe that yourself, started from the last week, started from the 18th of August, when we got Russian plane landed in Minsk, and we see hybrid intervention. And the first and the major thing that Russian propagandists landed there, and they replaced Belarusian TV presenters who stepped down from their official TV positions. And that's one of those very difficult and complex signs, because Russian propagandists are trying to create Donbanization of Belarus and trying to play that same card that Belarusians are supported by NATO, and the West is paying for all of it. And they started to bring European Union flags in order to show that Belarusian people hate Russia, but it looks like a joke, because Russian propagandists, they are not aware of Belarusian mentality. And it's completely different mentality, even though like for years and centuries, we've been told that we're the same, but we are different. And that mentality is a major difference that show that accumulated wisdom of non-violent resistance that existed on this planet for centuries. And that was beautifully developed by Gandhi, that was amazingly put into book by Gene Sharp. And Belarusians are doing exactly that particular thing. They're expressing the most peaceful demonstration, and the Russian propagandists can't use it, even though they landed on that plane, FSB, Military of Defense, Russian administration, Russian government, but it's not working. It simply doesn't work there in Belarus. But still, we never can't rule out what Russia could do. And here it is a major job that has to be done jointly by Western democracy, and put Belarusians in the center of that process in order for Belarusians to keep its independence, because the only thing that Belarusians want that everyone will leave them. And they will be able to develop peacefully and democratically their own country without any interference. So this is the job of all possible mediations, and that is happening now. And the schedule is very tough, because it's clear that we don't have time. He doesn't have time as well, because he is running out of money very quickly. We need
let me just
to move.
Interrupt you there briefly. He's running out of money because
economy, so there were two at that particular moment from where we started. It was March, April of this year when the economy went down. That economy wasn't in that bad situation before in Belarus. So it's one of the major and key points that happened in Belarus. And then the second point was coronavirus. So it's possible to say that Belarusian economy situation, it was fuse cord, and coronavirus became gunpowder for that fuse cord. When for people it became clear that it is the matter of their existence, it is a matter of their life and death, and it's exactly connected to the issue of money. So the only money that he has now, it's his golden supply, but he is not able to start to sell it because nobody will buy it for him. Even Euro bonds that started to be traded, they are not trading. It's not possible to sell anything. And he is supporting Ministry of Internal Affairs, he is supporting law enforcement, but how long it's able to be supported, it's a huge question.
Thanks. Franek, is that the key, the ability to turn the police authorities around, to convert them to the opposition?
They will not be, sorry, very quickly, they will not be converted to opposition. There is a fear that If Putin just gives a sign that Lukashenko is not needed, they will be swiftly moved to Putin's side. So we don't think that there is a possibility of major movement. Maybe Franek will disagree, but there are no signs of law enforcement major 100% move. There are a number of them who are moving to opposition side, but it's for now it's few. It's not a huge wave of those who are moving on the side of people.
Go ahead, Frank.
Yes, I fully agree with Natalia. Actually, I think that's one of the most efficient and perhaps one of few efficient things built by Lukashenko for 26 years is the system of law enforcement. Thousands of people working for police, riot police, internal troops, special operation groups, paratroopers, and all of them are interconnected, interdependent. They are part of the power vertical. They're super loyal. Government paid them very, very good money, and that actually made the situation of riot police very different from the army. Army was always underpaid somehow because Lukashenko didn't feel so much foreign threat as the internal threat coming from the opposition. And right now, when he appeared at the streets with the gun and then cheering the riot police officers protecting his presidential palace, that was exactly the moment of his real intentions. He really understands that the only power, the only force right now he can rely on is law enforcement and the riot police. So we don't see any signs that riot police officers, these generals, or those commanders of special troops, they're going to side with the opposition. All of them are working so closely and for so many years with Lukashenko. So I think they have something like family relations there.
Mm.
What can be divided, the army, the military. I know that a Ministry of Defense, it's very top. They released some statements that army is going to be introduced on Belarus streets to participate in the protest crackdown if needed. But I don't think if this idea is supported by all people who work in Belarus armed forces. Because actually many of those officers, they are educated not in Russian institutions already, but in the independent Belarus already. Many of them are real patriots. Many of them understand and disagree with Lukashenko. For many of them, Lukashenko is the representative of the past, of the Soviet era Belarus. So I don't think that army is so consolidated as the police forces. But same time, unfortunately, army is not prepared to protect people in domestic conflict. You know, army is not trained for that. And the only possible scenario, which is not seems to be realistic soon, but the possible scenario that the army will protect crowds in the critical moment. If Lukashenko will order to shoot, let's say, protesters, you know, some groups of army will stay in defense of them. But regarding other elites and ministers, officials, unfortunately, there are no many signs now they're going to switch to support the opposition neither. And it's connected also to welfare, to the benefits they receive from the system. So far, Lukashenko is able to pay them salaries, to give them some benefits, and they see that the economy is still working. But it will not be the same in 1 or 2 months. We already see how Belarus ruble is collapsing, is falling into an abyss, and that's the moment where Lukashenko's system might really collapse. You know, because Lukashenko was always buying loyalty with money. Except riot police, other people there primarily for money. They don't feel like ideological connection. Lukashenko's values and ideas, they're very old school. They're not very like trendy. They don't fit like any people who travel and who see how the world is living. You know, they're very, very anachronic, I would say. But unless he can't pay them enough and can't buy their loyalty, they are with him. Let's see what will happen. The most important is for opposition to form the institutional presence. This committee, national committee created by Svetlana Tiganovskaya, supported by Svetlana Alexievich, Nobel laureate. This is the institution which must be this negotiation point, and which must be the place where these officials, nomenclatura, are able to come and to say, guys, I am ready to talk. If they will be institutionalized, then this process of deconsolidation and decomposition of the power vertical, it will be amplified.
Yes. So the Coordination Council, I understand that it's a pretty large body with at least hundreds, literally hundreds of people associated with it. About 70 key players. I think one of the opposition lawyers referred to that as the backbone, and then a presidium of 7 individuals. What are the backgrounds of those of the key players on the Coordination Council? How representative of the opposition are they?
There are more than 1,000 members on the broad council. All those intelligentsia, workers, representatives of organizations, traditional opposition, new opposition, bloggers. But those 1,000 members, they have the presidium of 7 people, you're right. And each of them has specific role. So Svetlana Alexievich has more symbolic role. She's the symbol and the leader of the nation. She is authority for many Belarusians, including those on Lukashenko's side. Pavel Latushka is former Minister of Culture and ambassador to France. And Pavel Latushka knows how Lukashenko's vertical works. So Latushka's example must be presented to other officials who want to side with the opposition. And Latushka is a very good speaker. He is like a spokesperson right now. And many people really liked him and really say that Latushka can be the next president after Lukashenko. The problem with Latushka is that he was never part of this closed circle of Lukashenko. He was never, because we have like 2 groups of ministries. One Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Economy, Presidential Administration, those KGB, those important guys. And there are those non-so important guys, including the Ministry of Culture. So Latushka was never be very close to Lukashenko, but he was always nearby, so he feels that. There are 2 lawyers, 1 mediators, Lydia Vlasova and Maxim Znak, who worked with Babarika, Viktor Babarika, former CEO of Belgazprom Bank, also former candidate for president. And they are working on making this body more legitimate, more organized, more serious. So it's not like a traditional opposition coalition in sake of coalition, but they do plan the legal procedure, which is very important. The presidium also has Maria Kolesnikova, who is one of this female trio, and Volga Kovalkova, who is official representative of Svetlana Tiganovskaya, the candidate and opposition leader. She's a representative of her in Belarus. So she, Volga Kovalkova, and the 7th member, Sergei Delevsky, who is the representative of workers, they are in prison right now. And so it means that 2 of 7 presidium members, they are in prison. And unfortunately, I believe these are not the last arrests. Authorities wants to isolate wants to disrupt the work of the council by intimidation, by arrests, and also by provoking conflict from inside. And this is what KGB was doing for many years.
Yes. Natalia, over to you. What does the Belarus opposition need from outside now?
It's solidarity and major support. And of course, it had to have absolutely different forms. Because for many years, when Belarusian opposition been appealing to the West and international community for support, it wasn't coming on time, and it wasn't a joint position. And there is a major worry that it will repeat itself again. Now we need to understand how to support civil society and how to distribute information. So for media to keep informing the world, because of course we know that with news, one day there is someone killed in Belarus, another day it will be another huge tragedy in another part of the world. But here, due to that unique situation, when we're able to change situation in the center of Europe, and what is also very important, it's necessary for international community to understand, if we're able now to have peaceful transition of power in Belarus, and for people of Belarus to show how to resist the regime, then it will be possible for us to show the example to Russia. And then we will move already to Kremlin. So I think like one of the major things that it's important for world leaders, public leaders, opinion leaders, journalists, to keep saying one important message, that there is a chance to stabilize the region. Yes, it won't happen overnight. Even within a week, it won't happen. But there is a possibility for us to stabilize the whole region. And it is happening over the last 26 years, first time. And we need to use this opportunity. So to keep pushing that idea. Otherwise, if we don't push that idea of peaceful transition and organization of free and fair elections without participation of Lukashenko, then it will be deep integration that will be organized by Putin, and he was exactly doing that before elections and pushing Lukashenko towards it. Then we will not be able to talk about independence of Belarus, because de facto it will be lost, because there will be no voice of Belarusians. So we must continue to, as the Western international community, to keep it in mind that it is about stability and safety of Europe and European democracy and beyond, of course. We need to understand how to keep all activists on the ground safe, including simple tools as satellite phones when it's not possible to track down people where they are located. We need to have all tools for protections of journalists. And we've been campaigning and lobbying UN for years that artists that deal with dictators, as it was happening with Belarus Theatre, they have to be moved into equal position of human rights defenders. Because for human rights defenders and for journalists, there are systems in place. For artists, there are no systems in place in terms of protections. And observing that artists are now standing up against dictatorship in Belarus, they need also feel protected. Trade unions, again, trade unions all over the world has major power. So if they're able to present that solidarity, not only video appeals saying how brave Belarusian workers are, but share all those tools of strikes that could continue for a long time and bring results, that will be the major as well. Also, when we're talking about legal aid, equipment, all possible ways to support families, it has to be, if the world moved so quickly into new technologies, if Belarusian new resistance moved into social media and Telegram channels, international community need to move as quick as possible as well in terms of new technology support inside of Belarus. So every single possible layer of support has to be now activated. And of course, like when we hear that possible support might have 10 around 6-12 months, I don't think then we will be able to talk about newly established youngest democracy in Europe if we will move that slow as Western democracy is used to move.
Yeah, thanks, Veronica. Mrs. Tiganovskaya is in Vilnius, involuntarily exiled there after she was coerced into making a statement that clearly she did not believe, calling for no protests. And since then, she's been quite outspoken. But I want to ask you about specifically are you satisfied with the response from your neighbors, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, the EU more broadly? What more do you want, and what do you want from the United States?
That's very good question. Actually, Lithuania is absolutely fantastic in terms of solidarity, support, and help. I cannot imagine what we will do without Lithuania this time. You know, they helped Tikhanovskaya to get into a safe place. They helped the first days, to communicate with foreign governments on behalf of Tikhanovskaya. But I would say that in general, the connection and the friendship between Belarus, Poland, and Lithuania improved due to a very important event last year. In 2019, the remains of the national hero of Belarus, Kostas Kalinowski, were found in Vilnius. The hero and the leader of anti-Russian, anti-Tsarist uprising in 1863, he unified Belarusian pro-democratic forces back then, Lithuanian and Poland, because all of them were fighting for freedom. And when the ceremony of funeral happened in Vilnius, many Poles, Belarusians, and Lithuanians came there, and it was like the celebration of Belarus-Lithuanian Polish Commonwealth from Middle Ages. So it was like resurrection of this medieval historical alliance. And I think since then, our connection and the friendship and relationship between Warsaw, Vilnius, and Minsk were significantly improved. There was much more trust. Many Belarusians began perceiving Lithuanians as our biggest brothers and friends. A few days ago, Vilnius authorities organized a huge solidarity rally in support of Belarus. They built 30 kilometers a human chain from Vilnius downtown to Belarus border. And this chain was attended by current president of Lithuania and former leaders of Lithuania. It was just unbelievable. And it was a very strong signal to Belarusians that, look, guys, you're our brothers. We are here. We are on the other side. We are part of European Union, but we are waiting for you. And this is the most important that Belarusians wanted to hear for many years, that they are not abandoned, they're not alone, that there are friends and brothers on another side of the border. And this is also diminish all pro-Russian propaganda, all the Sputnik and RT propaganda, that Belarusians, never had their culture, that Belarusians don't have their religion, Belarusians have artificial language. The strong signals of solidarity from the West and also from Ukraine, actually, they help so much in shaping this new, modern Belarus identity. And thanks to Lukashenko's crackdown, actually thanks to it, this identity was, it seems, is finally formed. And this identity actually is, it gives and it makes Belarus society much more resilient to Russian influence, to Russian propaganda, to Russian disinformation, which is feeling which is flooding Belarus state television and media channels right now. And all these red, white flags on the protests, all these songs, even dancing every night in the Independence Square in Minsk. These are everything very important signs of Belarusians getting more mature in terms of identity. And this wouldn't happen without the strong solidarity from Poland and Lithuania.
Thanks. Natalia, I want to turn back to you, and I'm going to ask you a question, and I actually kind of know the answer that you're going to give me to this question, and it's probably going to be a fairly blistering answer, so I'll just warn everybody. But, you know, there's this idea that's taken roots in some European capitals and sometimes in the United States, that the most important thing is a Belarus that is independent of Moscow. And that therefore Lukashenko is somebody you could do business with for the purpose of maintaining an independent Belarus. What do you think of that analysis?
There is no possibility for us to be independent if there is Russian involvement into it. So the only possibility for us to be independent is for us to be independent. That's exactly that major point that we must state and agree all together on it. And unfortunately, you will remember over years, it was this whole idea that existed within EU saying that it's better to have Lukashenko. Otherwise, if we will punish him, then he will get into hugs of Putin. And that's kind of one of the major mistakes that been done by European Union, because the only thing that European Union needs to do with support of the United States is to give a very strong sign that independence of Belarus has to be in hands of Belarusians. That's the main point. Otherwise, it will not be a possible development. There were even conversations last week that almost put us into shock mode when there are conversations are happening that Belarus is not self-managed state. It has to have support of Russia. And if Belarus, I will say, let's go into history of Belarus. The history of Belarus is a very straightforward history. When Belarus has exercised Magdeburg right and self-management of cities, Russia never knew even about that, and they never did that. When Belarusians translated Bible into Belarusian language, Russians translated that 100 years later. So if we talk about how mature is Belarusian nation, we need to go into the history of Belarusian nation and confirm once again that Belarus belongs to mature European family. But once again, to confirm that, of course, this country is that mature that, of course, we will be simply neutral to our big neighbor as Russia. We don't plan to fight with them. We just want them to leave us alone without their propagandist machine and the war that they organized in Ukraine. And after that, for example, again, like now, while going into different capitals, we are having meetings with possible foreign investors. Already now, Belarus is sending such a strong sign of peaceful nation that is dealing with the situation with non-violent resistance, that investors already considering investing money that particular moment when he is gone. And currently the only thing that I could do, an appeal to Yandex and Viber, it's major IT companies that are now talking about moving to Ukraine, is only to say that please just hold on. Within few months, it's possible to change the situation, and we at the new democracy will give you even better investment conditions. And this is exactly what has to be said by leadership of the independent Belarus. Make all those clear statements that help us now, stay with us, and then you will have the best condition for your business.
Natalia, you've become positively a diplomat over the years. I was expecting a slightly more fiery denunciation of this realpolitik view that says.
Yeah, we've been through it. We started 2 months ago with fuck realpolitik. That was that reaction when we said exactly those particular wording, and coming back to 2009 when Dalia Grybauskaitė, at that particular moment president of Lithuania, when it was exactly the 16th of September of 2009, when she met with Alexander Lukashenko, and it was 10-year anniversary of kidnapping and murders of Anatoly Krasovsky and Viktor Gonchar. That was exactly the day when we started our campaign Fuck Realpolitik. And it took us to the moment before elections when we continued to say that. On the 9th and 10th of August, we said Fuck Realpolitik, because you completely betrayed us again when we warned you that it's not possible to avoid the situation in Belarus. And then we quickly developed a plan that was spread all over diplomatic missions when we said that we must send a very strong message that the fire has to be ceased. He needs to put all his dogs into barracks, and then there will be a possibility to start negotiations. The first step was achieved, but now it's exactly the question how to organize those peaceful negotiations about transition of power. Again, of course, there is that particular moment when emotionally you think like, personally, I don't think that I want to let him go. And I seriously want him to stand up and in terms of tribunal. But when you start to think logically and observing now people in Belarus who do everything so peacefully, and it's very clear desire of people just to get him on jet and to fuck him out of the country, if we continue to use our fuck realpolitik language. But now we really push for that peaceful transition in order for people to get back to their new but normal, peaceful life without him.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Franek, when, Deputy Secretary of State Stephen Biegun met with Svetlana in Lithuania. I've poked both of you a little bit to say what you want from the United States, and you've been a little reticent, I think, in the sense that you've mainly, the message is mainly solidarity. We want support, and maybe some specific NGO assistance kind of thing. What about sanctions?
I can start, but I'm sure Natalia can add. Here, I think the most important to impose personal, individual sanctions, and very quickly. We know the names of all those involved into repressions, into election fraud, into crackdown, into giving orders on torturing and beating people. And it's very important to impose the sanctions to prevent the escalation, but also to put some costs on this type of activities, because this violence, medieval violence in the center of Europe, it's unacceptable, and not imposing sanctions means enabling them in the future, and also allowing other regimes to follow Lukashenko's example. And let's remember that Russia is using Belarus as the playground, training ground, and what is happening in Belarus usually is exercised in Russia after a few years. So in order to not let Putin to do with his people, same what Lukashenko is doing with Belarusians, we have to stop Lukashenko right now. So these sanctions not about 100 people, it should be about hundreds of people, it's not thousands of people. All those who are helping this regime in Minsk to stay alive and stay consolidated. I also think that contacts on official level with Minister McKay, with the administration of President, with Lukashenko and cronies, it must be frozen. And at the same time, the dialogue with Svetlana Tiganovskaya, National Coordination Committee, with civil society must be renewed. It must be amplified. I think that's the perfect moment for the US to relaunch Voice of America for Belarus, to empower Radio Free Europe broadcasting. It's very sad to see that this is a moment when Radio Free Europe must be supported in Belarus, but we see that US Agency for Global Media, opposite, is reducing its operation and is cutting its operation in Eastern Europe. It's very sad, and it must be done oppositely. Voice of America exists in Ukraine, it works in Russia, but it never worked in Belarus. It never operated in Belarusian language. So this is exactly the moment when Belarusians can get their own bridge, their own connection to American government. Because Voice of America, it's not only about the broadcasting, it's also about connecting the voice of people in the field with Washington, D.C.
Now, Natalia, I want to ask you one more question, which is the phrase "last dictator in Europe" is one that has been applied to Lukashenko for a while, and I noticed that somebody asked you on Twitter, I think it was, well, but what about Putin? What's your answer on that?
Very simple. To all politicians, there is very simple answer: learn geography and geopolitics, because Belarus is located in Europe and Russia is located in Eurasia. So Russia is located in between Europe and North Asia. So everything is very straightforward and very simple. And that's why we're saying that he is the last dictator of Europe. And when you resolve it, we go further into two different continents, and we'll start to deal with that situation. But it's very sad to observe even Europeans, when European Union Commissioner is saying that Belarus is not located in Europe, Belarus is located in between Europe and Russia, and you think, these are European specialists who are dealing with Belarus. And this is exactly that particular moment when you simply can't comprehend in terms of the knowledge of the country where dictatorship exists for 26 years. For 26 years, we ask politicians to move and do work proactively, not reactively, because currently, when you raise the question in terms of sanctions, and when I'm telling you that we've been trying to put those sanctions in place 2 months in advance of elections, because at that particular moment, already 1,000 people got arrested. And now, straight away, the 9th and the 10th, we submitted first lists of names. And the question is like, what we're waiting for? Seriously, like what we are waiting for? And I'm talking about the United States. Of course, I understand that the situation with the United States political situation on its own is very complicated. And it's very difficult to deal with Congress. And unfortunately, we don't have John McCain with us anymore. And we understand that it's kind of not enough strength within the American government to push from inside what we always managed to do, because it was major support. But still, we have those friends, and those friends are really pushing hard to make it happen. And it's exactly the question how long we need to wait for. and again with European Union. What's wrong with you people? Like, why you decided to put on hold? Like, why everything is put on pause? Because if it was straight away put into place within the first week as a major sign of a threat to Lukashenko and his clique, I hope we will not have next weeks of repressions. But because now we observe the situation when the United States, European Union are waiting for something, and tell you honestly, one of my conversations that I had with one of politicians, it was a conversation. Listen, we'll put sanctions in place. We just need to see whether repressions will deteriorate. And I'm like, seriously? So again and again, since 1999, when I had those conversations, when I was still at the American embassy, when first kidnappings and murders happened in Belarus, when we've been asking for sanctions, the answer was amazing one. It's not enough people been killed. So this is exactly the question. Do you wait for more people to be killed if we talk about major politicians who are making those decisions? Do we need to see more barbaric and medieval tortures that is happening inside of Europe now in the center? And it only reminds me Michel Foucault, who was saying that we put, first of all of it in front of eyes, all those killings in order for others to be afraid. And then we put a body inside of jails and torture there in order for soul to suffer. But Lukashenko is still doing in front of eyes to continue to scare. So the question is like, for what the international community, world leaders are waiting for more Belarusians to be killed?
What are they waiting for? Frana Shorka, Natalia Kaliada, thanks so much for joining this extremely interesting discussion. Power to the Belarus people. I'm Todd Lindbergh. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Todd.
Thank you.
Great pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah.